Uh-oh. You're gonna need to say that and continue.
Esto es Comando Z. Hi everybody, Leishy Gobero here from Come and See Podcast. With us today, Devin Harold. Devin Harold is the Director and Head of Design Research for Financial Services at Capital One. In his career, he has advocated for how UX ties to business impact and how to build ethical research practices at organizations to ensure human dignity is respected throughout the insight process. Devin loves to give back to the UX community through publishing articles and speaking at conferences about user research and impact. Without further ado, let's welcome Devin Harold. Welcome and thank you so much. So today we will be talking about a little bit of everything, but mostly about design, right?
That's right. My favorite topic.
Your favorite topic. Yeah, it's me too. So when we will be talking about, like, first of all, when designing user experience, how do you ensure that design aligns with the business objective? I know that it's really hard sometimes, like trying to meet goals and also trying to be really some user-centered design. So can you provide examples of a project when you successfully balance user needs and business requirements?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll first start by just saying that this is so important. It is our job as designers and design leaders to balance the needs of both the users as well as the business. If you over-index on only one of those things, you're not doing it right. So what I usually like to recommend to folks is making sure that when you start a new project, you ask the right questions. When beginning a project, understand what is the end goal? What are the results you're looking to drive? What are the decisions that need to be made with your contributions in mind? And work backwards from there. If you are able to determine where your work is going and how it helps the business, and especially how it helps customers, you'll be able to make sure that you prioritize your focus and just really dive into the right things, delivering the right type of value. So to balance this, of course, you mentioned user needs and business goals. It often can feel a little bit like a tension, maybe that they can be at odds, but I would argue that there should be parity, and that's our role to find where the parity is. What is the highest points of leverage that will drive customer satisfaction, increase usability, make things easier to understand and use for customers while driving business results? An example of this on a recent project was when I worked for a large telecommunications company. We had understood that our customers had some difficulty understanding our offerings. How we described our plans, how we organized them, didn't really make sense. And we also know that one of the cornerstones of the business was to drive revenue through those subscription plans. So that was an interesting apex of the user needs, being that they just really didn't understand what we were offering, and the business needs of we really need to drive revenue. What we did was we understood what were the pain points, the very specific things the customers had struggled with, and we worked on improving those things. So that way we can better position our subscription plans to the marketplace, made them easier to market and to sell because customers understood them easier. That drove not only satisfaction when customers were in their shopping journey, but it also drove revenue. It drove click-through rates on the website and conversion rates because people understood what they were getting themselves into. And on a very tactical aspect of this, when we were doing this research, members of my team worked with our marketing teams, and they did usability testing to make sure that they saw a meaningful lift from the plans pages and being able to understand and access our website to purchase those plans. And we made sure that we benchmarked against that and did several rounds of usability testing. And then in addition to that, we did take rate analysis. So we worked with our market researchers to say, all right, now let's spread this across 1,000 different customers in the marketplace and see if we're seeing any measurable lift in two things. One is adoption of these new plans that we were putting into the marketplace. And the other one is what we called premium plan mix, which is, are people going for more premium options or less premium options? And of course, we wanted to make sure that we improved both usability as well as adoption, because that is the apex, like I mentioned earlier, of user and business needs. We did several rounds and iterated classic double diamond approach to doing design and research. And we actually really found a solution that worked both for the business and the customers.
One of the things that I want to highlight from your answer that for me like blow my mind is like how we actually do this bridge from goals of the business and the user needs, because sometimes we are so focused on the things that we want to accomplish when with our users that we forget that we actually need to do like that mix of pancakes, like everything is important from this side but this side too, and we need to be the translators from the business side but also from the user side, right? And sometimes that is when the things gets complicated, right? To be the translator of each side of the story.
Yes, that is a really difficult part because you're not only trying to speak the language of your users, but you have to know and speak the language of the business. If us as designers don't understand how our businesses generate revenue or reduce cost, then we don't know our place in the business. And so that's really important to not only understand our customers through research, but understand our business by working with our experience teams, our product leaders, our business leaders, our marketers, to really understand what are their focal points, what are their visions of success, and how do we drive that for the business as well.
In this past, I would say like 6 to 8 years so far that I'm being in the career, one of the things that I always say in different episodes and when I have some conference, that it's super good. For example, in my perspective, I'm specialized on accessibility. That people talk about accessibility is really a good thing to do. It's super good for users, and it's like it's the truth. But the reality is when you talk about accessibility to companies, you need to sell it, right? You need to talk about numbers, you need to talk about revenue, you need to not to talk about like position and ranking. And sometimes people say like, oh, that's super bad to say like you're selling accessibility, but you need to translate to actually business communications. And that is when the games start actually rolling the ball of the things and moving the things to do something different and actually applying the things that are important to the mix of the business. I mean, that's my opinion.
I think it's spot on, especially with accessibility. I think there's been many studies out there that suggest there is a lot of money left on the table if you're not building your products and services with accessibility in mind, because there are many folks with disabilities and across the ability spectrum out there who are ready, willing, and desire your products and services. So if you're not accommodating them, then again, you're missing out.
Yep. So ethics and user research also involve ensuring diversity and inclusion. So how do you approach recruiting participants? Because it's could be hard, right? From diverse backgrounds and ensuring their voices are represented and valued in research process.
Absolutely. That's so important, especially when we do research. It is incumbent upon us as researchers, as designers, to make sure that we support the dignity and welfare of our participants and that we strive to make sure that our products and experiences are equipped to handle the diverse needs of the populations that we serve. A couple of ways in which I've seen this be really successful is first to take a look at your tool stack to make sure that the vendors that you work with, the panels that you use to get access to your participants, or the tools that you use are all engineered in a way that support DEI, diversity, and accessibility. For example, if you use a particular software for running usability testing, you should probably make sure that it is accessibility friendly. So that way, when you are doing research, if you happen to recruit someone either by purpose or by happy accident, someone with who's blind or has motor disabilities, you need to make sure that what you're using and how you're interacting with them is equitable. Otherwise, your practice is one step behind. And so that's really important. In addition, if you are working with a panel to get access to participants when recruiting them, making sure that they at the very least, are a representative mix of your population. So here in the continental contiguous United States, we always make sure that the panels that we work with have a good general US population representation. Because if they don't, and you end up recruiting someone, let's say you're recruiting 20 users for a big study that you're doing, and they all happen to be like old white females or younger white males. Like that's not a good representation of the populations that you serve or the products and experiences that that you're trying to bring to market. So I think it's really important to make sure that your tool stack has that built in. In addition, with recruitment, just like anything in research, it takes intention. You have to really work at it. It's not something that just happens. You're not going to find that you'll have a representative mix of customers just because. You want to make sure that when you are starting your research project, you make an intention to have a representative mix as best you possibly can. Even if your sample size is small with just 6 users, how can you make sure that you at least have a different range of folks with diverse backgrounds? And then check in on that recruitment as it's happening to make sure that you are trending towards a diverse representative mix. And if not, make sure that you make adjustments if you need to, even if that means pushing the timeline a little bit to make sure that you don't have just a homogenous set of participants in your research. And then lastly, you mentioned the part about like the research process. What's really important too is to make sure that when you are working with participants, a lot of the research we do is one-on-one, empathy sessions, usability testing. You want to make sure that you consistently support the dignity and welfare of your participants. Give them informed consent forms to make sure they understand what they're signing up for. Make sure to use and leverage proper gender pronouns, the way that they choose to identify. These are all ways that you need to protect their dignity and support them throughout the process. And lastly, it doesn't just mean supporting them during research, but after research as well. If you did all this work to get a representative mix of folks within your sample, you supported them throughout the process, but then in your findings report, you only highlight some voices and not all voices of your users, that is still not good enough. So we need to make sure that when we're reporting and talking about the voices of our customers, we're lifting up all of their voices and making sure that all of our participants are heard.
Thank you so much. That is so a complete answer. So one of the things that I would love to highlight, it's actually talking about the tools. Like the majority of the times, like people, it's like really stuck with some tools that are like cool, trending. And of course, we need recommendations because we are trying to find the best tools available for doing our work. But sometimes like some of the tools are good, are trending, but not necessarily accessible. So we need to make sure that we are doing our research side about the tools. And another aspect really important, sometimes people tell me, oh, I'm doing research, it's super hard to find people in terms of like accessibility, how I find an actual representation, where there's different companies out there that actually provide different talent pools that are for people that have different disabilities. So you need to do a little bit of research to also find these particular companies that help on the research process.
That's right. I agree. And that's where that intention comes in, to make sure that you don't just jump on the coattails of what is popular or trending, but that you make sure that it accommodates your needs in the type of research practice that you want to build.
Yep, completely agree. Can you give us a sneak peek of what you'll be talking about in What If Summit? I'm really curious about it.
Yeah, so it's actually everything that we've already been talking about today. As we think about building research practice, we need to make sure that we do that with an intention and a lean towards ethics. So my talk is going to be about how to build an ethical research practice at any organization by bringing that level of rigor and intention. First, you have to commit to it. Like I mentioned earlier, ethics is not just something that happens. It takes intention, it takes diligence, it takes persistence, and it's not a one and done. You have to continue to make sure that you support yourself, your team, and your organization. And so committing to action is the first step, even if it causes some upfront work for you to redo your recruiting process, for you to find new vendors or panel participant suppliers, or if it is to find new tools for doing research. That's the upfront legwork that you need to commit to first. After you commit to those things, don't try to start from scratch and reinvent the wheel. Learn from others. Learn from analogous examples. Learn from internal review boards at large universities and other for-profit companies that have done this before to gain some inspiration for building your own code of ethics. What do you and your team and your organization want to stand for? What is the practice that you want to build and the backbone of that practice? And that's the code of ethics. Once you've done that, that's where the legwork comes in, to make sure that based on your code of ethics, if you're improving your informed consent processes, if you're following GDPR and CCPA compliance guidelines to make sure that participants' data is well supported, documented, and remained confidential throughout the process. Those are things you have to make sure. Do you have a data suppression plan? Do you have a data retention plan? Make sure that you build those. Make sure that you document those. And don't do this alone. Making sure that you do this with support of your legal partners, with compliance, with your ethics team if you have one at your organization. And then lastly, the one big takeaway I hope people really resonate with is that ethics and DE&I is not the sole job of folks with that in their title or their job position. It is the job of all of us across every level, across every discipline. You have the power to be able to take a stand and to actually make progress without needing to be told to do so. And so I hope that people feel empowered with my talk around how they can take some of that inspiration and improve and level up their process and their practice of research.
Thank you so much for doing that call to action. Like, it's super important that people understand that not only us that actually are advocating for this kind of topics are the ones that are just leaving the flag, right? Like trying to push and be the leadings of this completely topics. Like other people can also do it, and it's super important that we need more allies, right? We need more allies
Yes.
to actually work with us and create like a space that this is more common. This is like not as something that is special to do or good to do. It's more like this could be normal.
It could be normal, and it should be normal. And that's the thing, is it shouldn't be sort of a specialized practice. And sure, there are
Exactly.
researchers and designers and leaders who focus solely on DEI or focus solely on ethics, and that's great. But it doesn't mean that the rest of us can ignore it as a result.
Yep. Yep. So we are almost finalizing this small interview just for What If Summit. But I don't want to close without this question. So what if organizations put the I first?
I love this question. I think three big things could happen. First, if you focus on DEI and ethics and you build that intention, that rigor that we've talked about, you'll improve the culture of your organization. People want to work for a company that truly cares, where they can bring their whole selves to work, and they know that the products and services and experiences that are being brought to market are as representative as the people that they serve. Second, it can help to mitigate risk. Again, there are some hardline requirements related to DEI and ethics, like GDPR, CCPA. There's other things in terms of making sure, like equal opportunity employment. Like, there's a lot of different laws and regulations that we can support. It just mitigates risk of you building products that are not in service to the true community needs. Terrible examples we've seen in the past is with AI or self-driving cars that ignore the skin of Black or African American people. And there are many other examples of where account structures or profiles for social media companies don't acknowledge your preferred name and they use your dead name. That's your legal name. Those are things that could easily be fixed with the right level of intention.
Mm-hmm.
And that causes a lot of risk if you do those things wrong. So really trying to make sure that with a focus on DEI, you limit risk as well. And lastly, it has been proven time and again that with a focus on DEI with your products and services that you bring to market, you'll increase revenue and satisfaction of your customers because they feel like their needs are being properly met. They have this sense of self-actualization when they use your products, and they feel like they belong with your brand and with your organization. It increases loyalty over time and increases revenue. So it's a good business decision, even if nothing else.
You are doing the great mix there, right? You are doing the translation in business, and you see
That's
me.
right.
You're the best translator that I met before. No, but to be honest, I completely agree. Like it's so important to actually implement it, DEI in companies. Like sometimes they forget that they are missing great talent. First of all, they are missing a lot of potential customers, as you mentioned, and actually the reputation of the company. So I don't know, but companies are missing something there.
That's right. I agree.
Well, thank you so much, Devin, for this amazing interview. I know it has been a little bit short, but if people really want to actually follow you or listen to you, where do people can find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn. Just search Devin Harold. I'm a design director at Capital One, and that's probably the best place to reach me. I like to post from time to time. I'm not really on much of the other social media channels, so LinkedIn's probably the best. And thank you so much, Laishu, for this incredible opportunity. This has been a great conversation.
Thank you so much. So we'll be to the next one. Thank you, everybody. Bye.